putting a practical and kind of bringing this back into the macro perspective. There's a general principle in functional ecology that goes under the header of shock tolerance. The degree to which a given ecosystem can endure a radical upheaval, introduction of a new species, introduction of a new species, a radical shift in the environment, a cataclysmic event, a tidal wave, a forest fire, that sort of thing. And one of the aspects that is most crucial, almost a predicting force for a given ecosystem is the biodiversity within that ecosystem. Lateral biodiversity. The number of species and the variety of species and the variety of survival mechanisms and survival requirements for a given species at a given layer of biological dependence. The more herbivores you have within a species, and the more kinds of plants that those herbivores can eat, and the more carnivores that eat those and keep those populations under control, and the more that these differing species are not absolutely reliant on one another. The degree to which a given herbivore could die out, but the carnivores are still okay. A given plant could die out, and the herbivores are still okay. Biodiversity is almost a determining factor for ecological shock tolerance. And I would say, I would propose that this is a working analogy for human thought as well. The differences between our perspectives, the differences in our epistemologies, in our metaphysics, in our phenomenologies, in our aesthetics, what have you, are not a problem to be solved. The conflicts, the potentially destructive conflicts that arise between them are. But the differences themselves are not a problem to be solved. They are the single greatest hope for human perpetuity that we have. For the perpetuity of human thought. That, the degree to which we think unlike each other, that is where I draw hope that the problems of today will have solutions tomorrow. That people will resolve the problems that they create between themselves and come up with solutions for dealing with the crises that are imposed upon them. That is why I think, that is how I think we will outlast an energy crisis. We will survive past radically shifting meteorological conditions. How we will endure beyond problems that we see operating at a global scale, because of how differently we think, because of the range of proposed means of engagement, conceptual, ideological, and practical, with shared problems. That any one problem is not being looked at from a single perspective, is not being navigated with a single set of tools, and is not being engaged with a single set of imperatives. That variety is the source of my optimism. The fact that somebody may have a radically differing idea regarding the nature of the universe than I do is where I draw hope. That variety produces that variety produces an aggregate increase in the amount of applicable information to a problem. That variety increases the amount of unique methodological approaches to acquiring information and applying information. And the catch is that that variety is most effective, is most beneficial when that variety occurs in a context wherein we walk a very, very difficult balance. A very difficult balance between, on the one side, not negating those differences. This is one of the reasons why I find conceptual universalism to be, toxic. The idea that, it's all really the same idea. You have your way of putting it, I have my way of putting it, but it's really the same idea. No, it's not. It's not. It is not all the same idea. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Lao Tzu are very different figures. They are different figures. They have different ideas. They have different. They propose different ideas, and they represent different ideas. And those differences need to be recognized, and they need to be validated as differences. But on the other hand, we need to recognize, or need to learn to recognize, that those differences are opportunity. Differences are opportunity for dialogue, are opportunity for productive discussion, not the cessation of. And this is where the we, us, post-Alexandrian, post-Roman, have a hell of a lot of trouble. Because, as I said an hour and a half ago, our response to difference is to conquer. Our conflict resolution strategy is eradication. And we can't afford that. We just can't afford that. I really do think this begins at the individual level. I really do think this starts with looking at ourselves, really looking at how we think, at how we feel, and giving ourselves liberty and permission to explore alternative means of engagement with those things. That when we when we experience anger, we recognize we are experiencing anger, we generally believe that there is a list of expressions that are available to us. These are the things I could do with this anger. There's a hell of a lot more that we could do with that anger. We have the ability to self-select and self-propose alternative means of experiential consequentiality, i.e., I experience this, and so I do that. We have a tremendous capacity to choose how we direct those experiences, how we engage with those experiences. And in experimenting with that choice, we start practicing. And I think more than it just keeps coming back to that. Practice. That our emotions, our thoughts, our memories, our desires, that these are a landscape which we navigate via our choices. And when thinking about how someone gets from point A to point B, think about a public park. Some picnic tables, some benches, some trash cans. And imagine a point A, imagine a point B, and you want to get from point A to point B. And you can imagine how you would generally do it. And you can imagine how a parkour artist would do it. And you can imagine how a gymnast would do it. And you can imagine how a street skateboarder would do it. Anything that can be done skillfully. And anything that can be done skillfully can be art. And I guess what I would suggest, and the upshot of all of this, is that if there is a solution, or a possible solution, not the only solution, but a possible solution, to many of the problems that we face as a species, problems that we face as a people, and problems that we face as individuals, the very personal problems that are almost too dear to talk about. I'd propose that one of the possible solutions is to start practicing the art of being human, and make being human an art, and a science, and a technology.